My attitudes about Korea. Well, if I'm going to do this right, I have to do it from the beginning. I went to Korea all the way back in 1981. That's a long time ago, I know. I went there in 1981. I didn't know anything about Korea. I had dabbled in a little bit of Korean food because I had some friends who had been to Korea, and they took me to a Korean restaurant, and I made a fool of myself by having the bowl of rice. Now, I know what rice means to Koreans. It took me a little bit to figure that out. And if you've ever been to Korea or are Korean, obviously you know what rice means to Koreans. Bop. Well, rice means a different thing to Americans who've never been to Asia. In this Korean restaurant, and I picked up the soy sauce and poured it all over the rice, in the metal bowl. Halmani lost her mind. She didn't yell and scream and carry on, but she walked away mumbling frantically. So, I went to Korea in 1981 because I was stationed in Arizona. And I really liked Arizona. And I knew I was coming up to be sent overseas. And I knew that. And it would have probably been a 3-year assignment in Germany. I didn't want to leave Arizona for 3 years. So I volunteered to go to Korea because everybody told me it was a 1-year tour, and it was. And they said I would like it. I doubted it. I didn't know why, but I didn't think I would want to go to Asia and stay, but I would do 1 year and then come back to Arizona, which I loved. Well, I got to Korea, and lo and behold, it took about 3 months. I actually learned to like it. Now, that happened because I did some things. Unlike most GIs at the time, I didn't relegate myself to the GI town, Itaewon at the time. Itaewon has changed a lot. I did go to Itaewon often, but I didn't keep myself to just the GI clubs. I would go to restaurants. I used to love to go to the market at the bottom of the big hill in Itaewon. I won't tell you what it's called, or was called, probably still is. But at the bottom was an open market, and I would go with other guys, and they wouldn't believe what I would do. I would walk up to food vendors and point at stuff and just buy it and eat it. And they would say to me, the guys would say, "Don't you want to know what it is first?" And I'd say, "No, I want to eat it first. And if I like it, I'll ask them what it is, or ask somebody to ask them what it is." My Korean was like that back then. But after, it took me a while. I wasn't completely happy to be there, I must admit. But after 3 months, I kind of realized, hey, I kind of like it here. Let me tell you a quick story. My first day in South Korea. We land at Osan Air Force Base. It's May 5th. It is hot. I mean hot for some reason. And muggy. I have never felt such mugginess until I went to Honduras decades later. But hot and muggy, May 5th. Kind of overcast, dreary. Just, Got off the plane, got our luggage, got on the bus. 2 buses. 2 buses going from Osan to Seoul. A 2-lane road, 1 lane each way. And the 2 buses are racing each other up this road. One right next to the other, going down. We all thought we were going to die. And the drivers are laughing. Oh. So that was my day 1. But like I said, I learned to like Korea. I actually learned to appreciate and enjoy and partake in much of the culture. In fact, every time the Army would have one of those spend a night at a Korean's house. Of course, you came home the same night. You didn't just go stay overnight. But you'd go and they'd pick you up at the USO and they'd take you to their home and you would eat and talk and play games. And I did it all. And every time they'd have one of those, my hand went up and I volunteered. They said, "Didn't you go to one?" I go, "Yeah." "Got anybody else?" So I would go. And I would eat the food, talk, sometimes talk politics, which was hairy at the time, but play the games, do everything. A lot of the others that would come too, because it wasn't just me, they wouldn't want to partake in everything. And that, to their loss. You know, I didn't understand all the games we were playing, but I played them. They were fun. And the Korean families that invited us to their homes enjoyed the fact that we, at least some of us, tried to indulge and tried to partake in what they offered. It was fun. Having learned to like Korea, guess what? I did not spend my 1 year and come back to Arizona. In fact, I was never stationed in Arizona again. I wound up spending 10 full years in Seoul. And it was great. I bought a car, Daewoo, drove all over the country, then wound up with a 67 Chrysler Imperial and continued to drive all over the country. Chuncheon, Gwangju, Gyeongju, Mokpo, everywhere. Daejeon, Busan. I went all over the place. I had a ball. Another time, I'm driving, we're heading into Mokpo. I'm driving in this great big 1967 Chrysler Imperial, and it's still in the mid-80s. And the road is blacktop. I'm driving, about 40 miles an hour, maybe 45, maybe a little faster than I should have been going. I didn't much do the math for kilometers per hour, right? So, but I'm looking down the road, I'm going, why did the road change color? The road wasn't blacktop way down the road, it was like purple. I'm going, why a purple road, all of that out of nowhere? That's interesting. Da, 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 da. Oh my God. Slam on the brakes. They had put some kind of peppers out on the road, completely covering it. Both sides, like a two-lane road, to dry them. And you kind of had to drive off the road and go around them, which I wound up doing. But, oh, if I would have run over those peppers, can you imagine what would have happened to me? So, this is the stuff you learn to enjoy. I spent 10 years there. Learned a lot. I actually got married in Korea. I dated one Korean woman. One. Married her. And have been married for 41 years. We have one daughter. We actually adopted her. So she's a full Korean, not a half, right? Not half me, half wife, full Korean. She now has 2 children, my grandchildren, and she's married to a Korean man, and they live in Oregon. So Korea has been a part of my life ever since 1981. And we're in 2024. That brings me to some things I want to really talk about. That's my background. I stayed there a long time. It's not like I know nothing about Korea. I grant you I haven't been back in a very long time. My wife's been back 2 or 3 times, maybe 3. I haven't had the opportunity to go back because somebody has to earn a living here to, you know, pay the rent, pay the school education for the kids, you know, all that kind of stuff. We had to do that. So, anyhow, Korea's changed a lot, and I know that. But there are some things I'd like to talk about. Despite the fact that Korea is my second favorite country, because, of course, I live in the United States, which makes this place my favorite country. Korea is a close second. But there are some things I want to discuss. There are some parts of the culture that I cannot abide by and cannot agree with. The way they treat women bugs the crap out of me. If you follow my posts, you see that. I'm constantly defending women, actresses, singers, women in general. I just found out the full story of the Burning Sun. Wow. Then I just read about and heard about the My Dang incident of 20 years ago. Wow. Wow. But what bugs me is that this culture permeates and still exists. I'm convinced if you go to Gangnam today, that the same atmosphere in the clubs in Gangnam are the same as they were in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And as a society as a whole, although probably kept under the rug a little bit more, society over there hasn't changed. What happened in My Dang, I'm sure happens to this day. What happened at Burning Sun, I'm sure happens today. And some people try to defend this stuff. They just sentenced the whistleblower, one of the whistleblowers, the first guy whistleblower at the Burning Sun incident, with a year in jail, postponed for 2 years, because he was accused of sexual assault in the Burning Sun. Now, if you do some homework, and a lot of people haven't, and they're defending this decision, the 3 ladies, it might even be 4, I'm sure it's 3, it could be 4, all of them, the ones who accused him of SA in the Burning Sun, were managers in the Burning Sun. These women would drug other women and then ensure that they got to the VIPs that Seungri and the Burning Sun were taking care of. So, there you have it. You see, still defending the male culture. The Burning Sun is long gone, but the idea of the Burning Sun still exists today. And they're punishing the male whistleblower because he blew the whistle. So this is the kind of thing that shapes my attitudes about Korea. It's a definite love and dislike relationship. I won't say hate, because I don't think I can hate Korea. That takes me on to, discussed earlier in posts, the racism that exists in Korea. Now, I live in the United States. I have to be upfront and say, yeah, I know that racism exists in this country, United States of America. I know that. Doesn't mean I like it, but I know it's there, and I don't deny it. We have work to do. We've done a lot of work. We have more work to do. We must continue to do the work. I'm fine with that. But in Korea, it's not that way. I've been basically told that, there's a little bit of racism, but not like your country. Well, maybe so, maybe not. But now, and they say that white people are at an extreme advantage in South Korea. And I've seen that in action, but not completely. I'm pretty white. Walking down the street with my wife in Gangnam, I had people call me Mr. Monkey, and just Monkey. I've had black friends when we were on Namsan Tower, up at Namsan Tower, the mountain, Namsan. They would call my friends Gorilla. A couple of times I was up there with my wife, and African American servicemen were running, jogging, exercising, and running. And people would point and say, Gorilla. So, these are the things that are real in South Korea. Don't forget the nightclubs and the restaurants that have signs up that say, no foreigners. That's not racist, right? That's extremely racist. Extremely racist. So it's there. It does exist, and it's not minute. That does not mean that most Koreans would give you the shirts off their back. I have to say, as a whole, and I was there 10 years, and I stayed there because I loved it there. As a whole, Koreans are extremely kind and extremely generous and extremely gracious. But that doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. But again, people try to deny its existence there. It's there. They have work to do, too. In fact, I just heard of one girl who had to take her friend to the hospital. She was severely injured. They get into the emergency room, and they get told to get out while the other Koreans come in. Actual Koreans come in. These people were foreigners. Koreans come in. They had to sit outside and wait. And wait. And wait. While Korean after Korean after Korean came in and got taken care of. And then they were allowed to be taken care of. Because they weren't Korean. So, yeah. Racism exists. And someone told me today that, well, you know, it's their country. Yeah. It is their country. It doesn't mean... That's not a good excuse for racism to exist. The United States is our country. Racism is here. Just because it's our country, it's not an excuse to do it. So, we have, in South Korea, we have sexism, we have racism, we have misogyny, we have people like Lee Jung-jae, two DWIs or DUIs or whatever you want to call them, and 2 assaults and battery, one time beating the crap out of a woman and putting her in a hospital for 2 weeks. Man gets $1 million an episode now. Big star. International star. They love him. Doesn't matter what he did. Kim Se-dan, young female actress, 22 years old. Used to be the country's little sister. Loved, adored. She is a good actress. She is pretty. Now, 1 DWI. 1. That's it. Just 1. KBS has banned her. She's basically persona non grata. Basically canceled from the industry. 1 DWI. 22-year-old girl. Lee Jung-jae. Habitual. Violent. No problem. See the difference? These are the things that shape my attitudes of Korea. I still love Korea. I wouldn't mind going again. I'm not so sure they'll have me. If they're watching this stuff, they're probably pretty pissed off. But I would just want to end with, despite how negative this post sounds, and there's a lot of negative in it, notice that I peppered it with positives. Because I do love Korea. I love my Korean family. I love my Korean church. I love South Korea. I pray for North Korea. I would like them to be free too. But there are problems that need to be fixed, and I can't fix them. I can only speak of them from afar. And I pray that South Korea will figure out how to fix it. And that's my take, and that is what shapes my attitudes of South Korea. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.